This week's podcast is sponsored by the Bowers & Wilkins Zeppelin Wireless Smart Speaker. Reimagined for the streaming age, its elegant form combines high-resolution stereo sound with a comprehensive range of smart connected features and services, including Alexa built-in. Experience the sound for yourself at authorised retailers like John Lewis, or learn more at bowerswilkins.com.
Hello and welcome to the AVForums Movies Podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, 17th of November, 2021. It's the podcast where we discuss movies and TV through the prism of AV. I'm Kaz Harlow, and joining me today are Simon Crust.
Hello, good evening and welcome.
And Mark Costello.
I'm Ed Sheeran.
Today we're going to talk sci-fi. What got us into sci-fi, what sci-fi flicks have been lavished on 4K, and at the cinema this year, what's coming up and what's really deserving of a 4K release, James Cameron. But with Shang-Chi landing on 4K and controversially, the inauguration of Disney's entire, half MCU in IMAX enhanced aspect ratio, we're going to be segueing a lot between Marvel sci-fi and real sci-fi. But first, let's take a quick look through our competitions, Mark.
Thank you, Kaz. So as ever, we have a huge amount here. I'm going to try and do this all in one breath. We have some solid hardware stuff first. A pair of Monitor Audio Silver 57G speakers worth £575. A Poke React soundbar with built-in Alexa worth £249. A Violet smart switch worth £169. One of 5 sets of Yamaha's TWE3B true wireless earphones worth £109 each. We've got a James Bond No Time to Die microscale electric set worth £60. And crumbs well over a dozen 4K and Blu-ray sets to give away, including the limited collector's edition 4K sets for Second Sight's The Guest, which is awesome, Arrow's Hills Have Eyes, which is also awesome, and Studio Canal's The Outsiders, which again is awesome. Discovery Season 3 on Blu-ray, especially you need to win that, seeing as it's disappeared off Netflix, with patron exclusive access to Criterion's November titles and the Guns of Navarone and Don't Breathe 2 on 4K, as well as a Resident Evil 4K double bill of Retribution and the final chapter. And finally, if you still want more and you want to go retro, we've got a massive 40-film Clint Eastwood collection on DVD that you can get your mitts on as well. So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter, and all competitions are open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. I'm spent.
Well done, nice.
Well done. Awesome.
And we've got a commensurately impressive list of winners. Simon Holden won a copy of Injustice on Blu-ray shortly after becoming a patron. It had nothing to do with it, Simon. Viklo and Togosa won copies of The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard on 4K. Ali 1991 won The Courier on Blu-ray. Sleepy One won the podcast exclusive Kagamusha on Blu-ray. Daddy R won a copy of The Servant on Blu-ray, but they didn't have any Blu-rays, so we sent him a 4K.
Hey! It's like Apple. We're the Apple of competitions. Free 4K upgrades.
Jasmine won Dark Eyes of London Monster on Blu-ray. Gerrix won Psycho Gorman on Blu-ray. Lambo62 won Singing Ringing Tree on Blu-ray. And patron Gordon Nobbs won Criterion's October titles on Blu-ray.
Well done, all. Well done.
Stay tuned for the podcast exclusive competition, courtesy of Dazzler, to win a copy of Brave New World on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Ooh. Yeah. And next, we're going to be talking Disney IMAX, Disappearing Discovery, and sci-fi on 4K in our feature presentation.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AVForums.
And we've got a whole bunch of new patrons. Craig McConville, Roger Tinsley, and Marcus all joined our happy group.
Good work.
So,
welcome.
Well done. Get entering on those competitions and we'll see what we can do for you. But thank you very much for joining. And the listener question for those listening and watching, what sci-fi movies would you like to see on 4K? We may or may not come back to that later, depending on our time. Right. So we had planned on talking sci-fi. Then Disney dropped a dozen new versions of their MCU catalog on Disney Plus in a special IMAX enhanced aspect ratio, also known as 1.9 to 1. We're going to be talking sci-fi in a minute, but we're going to first talk about MCU by pretending it's sci-fi. Let's not argue about that. It's big news. And the reason why it's big news, or at least it's big news for me, just one person on the planet, but the reason why it's big news is because we're all about the discs. We're all about the best AV quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I've prided myself on owning all the MCU on 4K. And I like them. Yeah. I love them. I love watching them. I love displaying the steelbooks. It's fantastic. Now Disney have done this really weird thing. They've dumped IMAX versions, and they are versions, onto Disney Plus streaming. Now, up until now, if you wanted to watch an IMAX version of their IMAX released movies, and a couple of them were shot in IMAX, maybe more, and some of them were filmed with IMAX scenes, and some of them were adapted for IMAX, like Iron Man got open matte, kind of fudging to make it IMAX. If you wanted to watch them in IMAX at home, you had to do a really weird thing. You had to buy the 3D disc. You had to strip one of the eyes off the disc, so you're just watching it in 2D, and that was your IMAX. So you basically don't have a home version of these Marvel movies up until now. And now, just conveniently, just before Shang-Chi got released in not IMAX 4K on disc, and Shang-Chi was entirely IMAX, they released 13, I think it is.
Yeah, it was 13.
13 of their titles, from Iron Man, the fudged kind of fake IMAX Iron Man, all the way through to Shang-Chi, 13 of them, including things like Endgame and Infinity War, which I believe were entirely IMAX, and other things like Guardians, which was partly IMAX, and Ragnarok, which I think was partly IMAX. So they've released them all. And I'm going to talk about Shang-Chi because that's the one that I most closely covered because I reviewed it. It's a big thing because I personally preferred Disney's IMAX version. I know it's terrible. I want to say I love the disc. The disc was lovely, but the expanded ratio, and it won't work. It won't be for everybody, but for me, it gave a more immersive version of the movie. There were quite a few scenes with over and above effects, whether right at the beginning you've got I'm not going to use his name because I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but you got one of the main characters wielding the 10 rings, and he's using them like an energy powered whip above his head, and you're losing that on the disc. You're getting a whole thing going above the entire train sequence when they start flipping about and going above the not train sequence, bus sequence, when they're flipping about and going above the bus and then back into it. They found it very hard to cram all that information into the 2.4 version, and you can see it in the full IMAX version. I get there's an element of wasted screen there, because they have to kind of cater for both. But it is an example out of the catalogue. Unlike I dipped into Iron Man, and I wouldn't say that lost a great deal at all. Unlike that, I found Shang-Chi made a big difference. And so I was utterly torn, because you got streaming, you got IMAX, looks fantastic. You got Atmos, but it's nowhere near the disc Atmos. And the disc Atmos is I thought it was tremendous, but the streaming Atmos, you got to dial that one up, and it's still lacking. So yeah, you have to dial it up a lot.
You really have to,
and it's still not the same. Even when you dial it right up, it's still not the same bass. I mean, so it's a real quandary. I mean, for we're talking to AVForums members here. There are people out there who are going to rip the IMAX version and then rip a track off the disc and then splice them together and have their own perfect home experience. But for a lot of people, they're going to be torn. And I can see plenty going to Disney Plus to watch a lot of these movies. I certainly, when I'm going to show the kids Infinity War and Endgame for the first time, I'm going to show them it on Disney Plus because the sound is great, but they're going to be more wowed by the IMAX version, and that's a big turning point. I mean, I looked at the disc that had turned up in my hands, and I thought, am I actually ever going to watch this again? Even if the sound is better, am I going to watch it with a better picture in front of me? So what do we think, guys? Snake oil?
Well, I think the thing for me, so I did buy all the 3D discs before they were released on 4K, so I have seen those. And my go-to scene for that is the German airport smackdown in Civil War.
Yes.
You know, it expands to the full screen, and in 3D, it is a sight to see. So when Disney Plus dropped this, that was my go-to, and I don't know, I wasn't as wowed, obviously, because I'm used to the same picture size, but in 3D, and in 3D it's great, you know, and I'm rocking a projector, and it's amazing. So for me, I wasn't quite as wowed with that one as it was, and I think the thing for me is, you know, this isn't like Nolan's use of IMAX in The Dark Knight, where you not only got the aspect ratio bump, but you suddenly got hit with 70mm versus, you know, crappy 35mm. So you don't get that massive quality leap that we got with Nolan. So for me, I'm probably more on the snake oil side of things. It's nice to have the option, but I will always reach for my discs, just because for me the sound is 50%.
But you've got the advantage because you got the 3D. Yeah. If you didn't, and you were watching them in scope in 2.4. That's the
true. I mean, to be fair, now it's very rare I crack open me 3D now. That's because I'm rubbish and I never charge me specs. so you know, so even though I have that, I still always go for the 4K. But yeah, I mean, it's good, and I can see why they did it. You know, and you know, it's nice to have the choice, shall we say. But for me, I'm sticking with my discs.
Fair. Simon?
It's interesting, isn't it? The choice aspect is great. We're all about choice.
Yes, because they put both versions on, haven't they? So that's immediately a very nice thing to do. You can actually select which one you want.
They're not trying to differentiate between home and I was going to say home and away, home and disc.
That's a different podcast. That's a very different podcast, Simon.
Yeah, differentiate between disc and stream, which is nice and unusual for a corporation such as Disney. We're all used to bashing them in the way that they perform.
Well, I am going to bash them. I am going to bash them because they're never going to release these on disc.
Well, no,
I'm totally going to bash them.
Yeah, but would you buy them on? Would you go out and drop another 25 quid to have it? So no, you wouldn't. So
I think I'd get Endgame and Infinity War, and
you drop another 50 quid.
Yeah, on those
really?
Two. I wouldn't get all of them because, as I said, watching some of them it doesn't quite work. But where they'd be clever is they could just release an IMAX set, and that would really scupper people. But whether or not I drop 250 quid to have 10 of them, including 5 I've not bothered about, is another thing.
I mean, you could argue that actually this is the best solution for everyone. You know, the people who bought the discs aren't suddenly going to go, oh my God, I'm going to have to rebuy them again. You know, the people who are streaming only have got the choice. So, you know, people like Stephen Philly who are rocking sort of the constant height projectors and don't like the aspect switching. You know, they've got a choice purely on Disney Plus. So in a way, you could argue that this is actually the optimum solution for everyone. Because I could say if they came out now and said, right, Monday, we're putting these discs up, 25 quid a pop, over to you, we'd all be
Yeah, I know. It would
moan
be
about having to rebuy them again.
I know. They've also, interestingly, they've maintained Dolby Vision, haven't they, for streaming only?
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely feels like between that and IMAX, there is an edge towards streaming for them.
There's a
isn't
push
there?
towards the stream, isn't there? The phasing out of the physical media is on its way, and this is the first step in that direction.
But yeah, it feels like, well, it certainly feels like we're edging closer than we were before. Anyway, it was a big thing, and I thought the timing was odd, considering it was just before Shang-Chi landed on disc. I mean, like, if you ever wanted to encourage people to pick up the disc, don't release Shang-Chi for free on their Disney platform in IMAX in Dolby Vision, just days before.
Yeah.
But anyway, are we ever going to talk sci-fi? I mean, because I'm going to say that Marvel is sci-fi just for the purposes of this podcast, but
Diet sci-fi.
Mind you, we're going to talk about Star Wars being sci-fi, and there's a whole question of whether that's fantasy or sci-fi. And a long time ago,
both.
far away,
Sci-fi fantasy, isn't it?
But,
Science fantasy. Is that
science fantasy, sci-fi fantasy. We're going to segue really smoothly by going straight into Star Trek, because overnight, with blissful unawareness of our impending podcast plans, they pulled
how outrageous!
Star Trek Discovery from Paramount, from Netflix, and said they're going to release it on Paramount Plus, which is just awesome news in 2022. So Star Trek Discovery Season 4, which was due at the end of the week. And I think Tom he'd already got some pain management pills so that he could go through the premiere of that. He was very disappointed. I think he's in mourning. It got pulled, and I think it's because Netflix has no faith in any of the Star Trek stuff.
Good for them. It's total crap, so I don't care.
Well, there is that, but it is a bit of a kick. I mean, they had conventions where they had all of the actors turning up. There've been some embarrassed tweets saying, we're really sorry. We turned up at the convention and talked about the show you're going to see us on in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. We didn't actually know you're not going to see it unless you get a VPN. It's interesting. I mean, people have related it a bit to the fiasco over Disney Plus and Mandalorian. I mean, we've forgotten about that, but back in the day, we didn't get Disney Plus for like 6 months, and everybody had already watched Mandalorian.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, it feels like that all over again. I mean, it's not the age for making people who have access to the internet wait. Access to VPNs. Wait.
No, but I think what's interesting about this is, the speed it kind of happened. Like I said, it dropped overnight. It's gone. Boom. Normally we hear about these things, and we get a few months of whinging about it, but we get to know these things. This just dropped out of nowhere. I mean, what are we going to wake up to tomorrow that's suddenly not going to be there?
Hopefully that Another Life thing, I'm hoping that gets pulled from Netflix overnight. If I can make a request for Another Life to be pulled from Netflix, that'd be great. But yes, who knows what's going to disappear?
But it's going to take its place.
But like you said, though, the most important thing is Amazon haven't let Paramount steal Picard season 2. So there you go. Everything's good. Everything's okay. I still get my John Delancey. That's all I care about. That's fine.
Actually, I was more interested in is it Strange New Worlds? The Pike series.
Yeah.
And again, suggestions in the comments thread on this were they should have left Discovery going and then pioneered Paramount Plus with Strange New Worlds. And I think that would have gone down better. This has been a bit of a kick in the teeth. I don't know how many people are going to be interested in getting Paramount Plus, and I don't think that Star Trek Discovery is going to be the biggest selling point for it. God, no. So I'd have probably gone with something slightly better, but here we are. Let's go. Yeah, we finally got to sci-fi on time as well. yes, we're there. We made it past all the news.
Nice.
Nothing else emergency has happened. So what got us into sci-fi is the question, and I'm going to ask it to Simon.
What got me into sci-fi? Okay, so it wasn't. I couldn't narrow down a film specifically because when you first start getting interested in things, it's television, and that's the thing that sparks your interest. And because there was no video, there to go to see a film, you had to go and see a film. You had to be a certain age to see films. And I was growing up in the 70s, and most of the science fiction in the 70s was quite dour, dark, and depressing and violent. So, or otherworldly, or very intellectual. So, and that's not the sort of thing that stimulates a 4, 5, 6-year-old kid. But there was plenty of television around. I've got vivid recollections of shows like Logan's Run and Planet of the Apes. But the one that really, Space 1999 was another one, but the one that really woke me up, and people who've seen my reviews will probably know this, and I'm going to pick my favourite Doctor, of course, because there is only one Doctor, isn't there? This one here, Tom Baker, Doctor Who. I've picked this particular season because I can remember seeing Robot when it first came on in 1974. I can actually remember that. I don't remember. I remember some of the Pertwee stuff, but that was only when it was repeated, not when it was first on. Whereas I actually do remember this, and I remember the arc vividly. The story. The arc in space. I remember that vividly with the painted green plastic, bubble wrap plastic, which was brand new, had never been seen before. And the BBC effects department got hold of it, put it on the bloke's hand, sprayed it green, and it was suddenly something nobody had ever seen before. And that was fantastic, you know. And obviously, as a kid at 4 or 5 years old, looking at that, going, "Oh my God, what's the matter with his arm? He's turning into a beast," and it was fantastic. So that this really is what got me into it. Although, you know, things like Space 1999 here. This came along a little bit later in time for me. Never quite as good. Looked incredible. You know, they took a lot of the effects guys went on to work on Star Wars and things like that, and they got a lot of their ideas from 2001. The stark lighting and the moon landing and the eagles and all that really came from Kubrick's work in 2001. So that's why Space 1999 looks so good, even though it was an offshoot of UFO, which was never made. Season 2 UFO was never made. It was turned into Space 1999. Do I have enough discs in front of me?
Good assortment of Jerry Anderson.
Well, and actually, and there's another good segue, because another one of my most favourite shows, and this was before Doctor Who was around, was these beauties. See that one there? That's Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds, the complete series. This is I've reviewed this particular disc on site. This one is a US only release, unfortunately, even though it's got on the back here ITV Studios. I don't know if you can see that there. ITV Studios there. This is actually only a US release, and the reason I got this is because it's in the correct aspect ratio, 1.33 to 1, which is how it was filmed in those days. I thought
it was filmed in Super Mario Nation.
That's the puppets, isn't it? It was filmed. And I've got some. Oh! Can I do this?
I'm come back from the rabbit hole, Si.
No,
come back from the rabbit hole.
I'm too far. Look at this beauty here. Look, that fills my entire screen. Hey, that is IMAX if ever I wanted it. Come on, look at that. Now that is a beauty of a set. This came from. What was this? Network TV. There was only, I don't know, about 2,000 of these made. Unbelievable set. It's got a fantastic book. I won't open it up now because we want to get on to other people. But that is fantastic. So really, what got me into science fiction would be a combination of one of the greatest scores ever recorded for a TV show and my good friend Tom Baker.
Very nice. That is a good start. You've covered me very well there with Thunderbirds. Interesting to see because you've eschewed the really, really big one in the room, which is well, let's see if Mark mentions it. Go on, Mark, what got you into that?
Well, of course I'm going to mention it. I mean, I was born in 74. Something happened in 77, that basically shaped my entire... So yes, it was Star Wars, but interestingly enough, it wasn't Star Wars. It was The Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. So 1980, very big year. Both sets of my grandparents, very formative experiences with science fiction. So on the one hand, my mum's mum and dad owned a paper shop in Davy Hume Circle in Urmston. And one rainy Sunday afternoon, my nan took me to a double bill at the ABC, Davy Hume Circle, of Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. Awesome. Double Wonderful. Bill in the cinema. It was amazing. A few weeks after that, my dad's mum was prattling around with the Weetabix. She liked the Weetabix. And they had a tie-in deal with this crazy new film coming out called Flash Gordon. What's all that about? And so suddenly, a few weeks later, I got taken to see Flash Gordon. That was at the ABC in Stockport. So 80 was the big year for me with flashy space opera. That was it. I was a goner. And then, I did all the usual, fall down all the rabbit holes with the toys and all that kind of stuff. But probably the only other one then that is around that time, and I don't know exactly when this was, it was the early 80s, but my dad decided to teach me a very important life lesson, which I carry with me to this day, which is be careful what you wish for. And I was perusing Radio Times like you do at the time, and this film called Alien was showing on TV, and it looked to be a pretty cool little picture. So it was like, Dad, I want to watch that. And he's like, no, you're not watching that. It's too old for you. Look, you can't. Dad, can I watch Dad? And eventually, after about several days of nagging, he said, right, I'll let you watch it on one condition, that you start and you watch it all the way through to the end. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. No. Listen to what you're saying, Mark. Do you understand it? Yeah. So, of course, it starts. And after half an hour, I am bored. I am bored out of my tree. Because, of course, nothing happens for the first sort of 40 minutes. Well, not when you're a 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. And then, of course, the face hugger, finds John Hurt, and that was it. Dad, I want to go to bed. Go into bed. You are going to stay in. And he made me stay for the chest burster. And that was I lost my crap at that point. Tears streaming down my face. Mum comes storming down. What are you doing? Get upstairs to bed. But what was interesting about that was, never went back to Alien ever until a few years later. And of course, the sequel came out, and I thought, right, I'm going to man up. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to get into this properly. And that was it. Done. Straight into the Xenomorph galaxy, and away we go. So, yeah, those are sort of the formative sci-fi experiences of my youth.
Yeah. I think. I mean, I hear a lot of that. I'm sure I saw Aliens, like the cut TV version, at far too young an age. I mean, back in the day when you could watch, you can't do it these days, but you could watch a lot of things you couldn't do back then as a kid because they were cut. The kind of pre-Watershed, and watch Beverly Hills Cop with, get the hell out of here. And I've for years, I didn't even think there was anything wrong with that until I watched the uncut version, and there's something different in there. But yeah, I saw Aliens. I obviously grew up with Thunderbirds, but I think it was probably RoboCop for me, because I got RoboCop at far too young an age.
That's a great film.
10 or 11, and it was a dodgy VHS, which got watched a lot, and I'd never seen some of the things in there. I mean, it haunted me for a long time.
Yeah, and weirdly, that version was the pre-cut version, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
When we got it over here,
it's pretty full on back in the day. I was not expecting that toxic waste tank at all.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
hilarious.
As a kid, I don't.
They taught you to stay away from toxic sludge, though, from then on, though. So,
yes, it was a lesson well learned.
Hashtag life lessons there.
Yes, I think, I think that was it. But we are going to bring it right up to date because we're going to talk about, I mean, this is how we got into sci-fi, but what has sci-fi done to us a bit more recently? I mean, what's come out recently in 4K and at the cinemas? I have to say, I did look at, Tom set up a thread for this, and very kindly Lucas from the thread made a very pretty picture with a whole list of 2021's sci-fi films. And actually looking at it, you realize that COVID has not been desperately kind to releases recently. We've had to do with slightly smaller scale films. I would say on the whole, the last like 10 years or so have been a big leap up in sci-fi, not just at the big screen, but at the small screen. But looking at this list, 3 or 4 of them are time loop films, which is fantastic because that's the latest thing. Things like Palm Springs and Boss Level. We've got Amazon's Tomorrow War, which was enjoyable. Reminiscence, which with huge action, and it's okay.
Huge action, did you say?
Yeah. Quiet Place 2, which oddly I always just put down as horror, but it absolutely is sci-fi. Little Fish, which was really small, but again, I wrote it off.
Excellent.
Clues in the name.
Yeah, it's great. And Greenland, which we didn't get for ages, but I really enjoyed. That also went to Amazon. They're doing another one of those. But top of the pile of this list and off my list and hopefully of many people's list is
Foundation.
Nice. Is this June? June. Yes, June. No, it should have been Foundation. But anyway, it's June. So what has tickled your fancy over the last year? What has whether on disc or at the cinema?
I mean, so in the last 12 months, I find myself, yes, all the big budget, actiony, blockbuster sci-fi, it's all right. But I found over the years, I much prefer the much smaller scale, the lower budget type sci-fi, which is much more about ideas rather than the spectacle. So things like Possessor, Brandon Cronenberg showing he's more than a chip off the old block. I like a little film called Come True, which I think Systems Dead mentioned in the thread as well. Again, very David Cronenberg, very surreal. It's a brilliant film. If you haven't seen it, check that out. Things like Psycho Gorman, which is might as well, like its namesake, been an old school Roger Corman film. It's insane and ludicrous. And then things like Love and Monsters, which I'm going to class it as sci-fi because it was set in the future. So there's been some good stuff. It's not been a bump a couple of years because I think you're right, Kaz. I think COVID's not been very kind to it, but also I think there is the Marvel superhero steam rolls in and sort of says, well, we're sci-fi, and sort of sucks all the air out of the room. So, sorry, one more I did want to mention, Little Joe. A little British film that had a whiff, forgive the pun, of Day of the Triffids, about sentient plants potentially mind controlling. So again, very small scale, but that typical big sci-fi notion of body snatchers, etc. So yeah, some good little films for me, and of course I still haven't seen June. So
yes, we're going to spoil.
What can I
that
say?
For you. I feel like we ought to.
There's sand in it. Damn it.
It's plenty of sand, a little bit of spice.
I mean, yes, there's been a lot of smaller films out, but I would say the flip side to what I mentioned about how COVID and the last couple of years have meant things have been maybe perhaps a bit smaller in scale, June notwithstanding, is that they have gone to town on 4K releases and released a lot of things that maybe we didn't anticipate coming. I mean, obviously not James Cameron films, but everything but that. They've tried their best in there. So I think that feels like that's made up for it a little bit for me. Rediscovering older films in 4K has been. I mean, it wasn't a recent release, but I still wow at 2001, which Simon held up in 4K, that's still, there's lots I'm waiting for, but I'm glad I've got that.
Yeah.
What have you found you've enjoyed in the terms of sci-fi in recent times? We don't have to tie it to the last year, but what do you think's done a good job?
What's done a good job?
Yeah, I can feel you've got discs in front of you, Simon.
He doesn't know where to start. He's got so many.
It's difficult. I mean, it's difficult, tying in what's good and what I want to come, and we need more of this. We need more Star Trek, real Star Trek. Who cares that Discovery's gone? We need this.
They did well with the first 4 films in 4K, didn't they? I mean, we did.
Yes.
Gave it a whole podcast worth of. You did a good job with this.
Yes. So I mean that was yes, but did they really? I mean, there's 2 versions to each film, and they only reduced 1 of each. So I mean, the set in itself could have been better if they were really trying. I mean, they have in the past, haven't they? In the past, they've done all this. There've been special edition DVDs released with both films on and everything. So if they really wanted to try, they could have done, and they could have released. I'm quite happy that it was the 4 films. Actually, it didn't need to be the 6 or the 7 if you include Generations. But I mean, I was quite happy that it was only 4. But if it's going to be 4, make it a set worth buying and have all versions of it,
and not
particularly
really,
the first one.
That doesn't work if you want to double dip.
Really cynical.
Well, you're not going to release you're not going to do a release of 4 Star Trek films and at the same time announce that you're going to do a later release of one of them with a director's cut, remastered effects and everything. You'd never do that.
You'd never do that.
No.
Oh, hang on.
I think there's been some good stuff on disc. I don't know the dates of it, but go on, Mark. What have you got?
Well,
reaching for something.
I'm reaching for something, and I there's going to be a Kaz-esque rant coming along here.
Oh, no.
You'll soon see why.
Thin red line.
No. Don't. So for me, again, the best releases have been. I've not got any 4K because all the big obvious ones, Kaz and Sam will already mentioned. But it's more about the entire package, the transfer and the extras as well. So for me, one of the very first ones that really sort of opened my eyes to it was Brazil, the Criterion release of Brazil. So obviously, is Brazil sci-fi? Well, what I love is sci-fi is often a future different version of another genre. So sci-fi here in Brazil is, future bureaucratic satire. And of course, the Criterion release was the first one to give you the 2 versions, including the Love Conquers All and the director's cut, and then the superb making of the Battle for Brazil. So that was the first one that was like a really stacked disc that showed me, what the disc could do. The next one, Dark City. And this is a fantastic sci-fi noir. Now, it's getting on a bit. I think this release is from 2007. This is the US release, and the UK release does mirror it.
Didn't it copy everything from The Matrix?
No. Don't come at me with The Matrix, Kaz. It copied everything from the 13th floor. Anyway, so Dark City, basically, the sci-fi twisted turning noir. And this had one of the first ones, I think, with a 7.1 soundtrack on Blu-ray, I think it was, because I think everything was DTS ES up to a point. But anyway, great, and there's some fantastic extras on here. It does a comparison to great sci-fi noirs like Metropolis as well on the disc. So there's a load of extra content on there as well. Here's where the rant starts. Nice, good one. Saturn 3.
Go on. Oh,
That's
really?
right. A 70s sci-fi slasher starring Kirk Douglas and a nearly Farrah Fawcett, with Harvey Keitel
robot with a hand for a head
by Roy Dotrice. But anyway, rant number 1. Can't get it in this country. This is the US Scream Factory disc. It's a decent transfer with a load of good extras on. You can get a German disc, a French disc, an Italian disc. No UK disc. And of course, the Scream Factory is Region A locked. Disappointing. Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. What a film. I saw this at the cinema and it was amazing. Those visuals, that sort of pulpy 40s newspaper serial.
Yeah.
but better than Sin City, I think you'll find, Kaz, because this has got walking robots in it. And again, it's a lovely transfer, but of course, again, no UK disc. You can go to Amazon now and pick up the Italian version for £9. So you might say, well, why do we need a UK disc? It's not the point. Great little sci-fi serial there.
You miss the logos, don't you, Mark?
Exactly. The Cell. Ooh,
yes,
sci-fi gothic serial kill. I mean, I watched Hannibal the other day, and I instantly thought of this. It's the same
I got time for Tarzan Singh, yeah.
Gothic insanity, and on this disc, it looks amazing. Those insane dream sequences. And again, no UK version, but you can buy the Cell 2. Brilliant. Who wants the Cell 2? No one. You want this. The UK does get some love. The UK does get a little bit of love. Turbo Kid. Now, just read that tagline. Mad Max on a BMX. I mean, quite frankly, who doesn't want to see that? And it's a lovely little low-budget sort of pastiche of those 80s BMX movies set in a post-apocalyptic landscape where Michael Ironside kills everyone and there's a gorgeous robot played by a woman called Lawrence. I mean, honestly, there's so much to love in this. And this is a UK disc. Hooray, finally.
Hooray.
We get thrown a bone for once. But I'm going to end, because I could go on for ages. I'm going to end with a shout out for all the wrong reasons. One of the greatest sci-fi films of all time has been served so poorly on disc. I feel I have to name and shame the distributors here for the literally 5 people who are going to listen and watch this. The City of Lost Children. Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro.
Yeah.
It is such a stunning film. And yet the transfer on both this and this is a US Sony disc. I think 20th Century Fox put it out over here. It is appalling. It is utterly dreadful, little more than a DVD upscale. The US disc doesn't have the 5.1 French disc that the UK disc does. So in that case, the UK disc wins, but it's now out of print. So, I mean, oh my God, come on, what's going on? So, yes, that's just a quick trawl through some of my favorites on disc.
Reframed as a rant.
Well, you got to rant last week about discs that weren't available. I thought, I'm having some of that. I'm going to have some of that this week.
Yeah, I did get to talk about Takashi Kitano a lot.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, he's not done any sci-fi. But yes. What would we like to see on disc coming soon? I mean, what would you like to see in 4K? Come on, let's narrow it down because there's just too much. Because otherwise, we'll just talk about James Cameron that hasn't even come to Blu-ray. But let's talk about 4K. We're obviously looking forward to Dune, which is hopefully Christmas time, maybe if they're clever.
Yeah,
that'd be nice. I personally would like to see Cruise's Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
I think that, I have a lot of fun, and I enjoy that film a lot. A lot of time for that film. It set the whole spark in this whole Groundhog Day sci-fi subgenre that's come into existence, and I still think it's the top of that particular subgenre. And Sunshine. I'm going to shout out for Sunshine because I think that look and sound spectacular. That score, those visuals, yes, I think I'd get a tan, particularly if they released it at Christmas. Maybe we'd all get tans. But yes, I'd like those, please, anyone out there listening.
Nice.
What are you going to go for, Simon?
An unmolested version of Star Wars would be ideal for me.
It's never going to happen. Yes, really. You should have said True Lies.
Well, that's not science fiction, though, is it?
I'm pretty sure there's a 4K 77 or something
4K 77
flying around its internet somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But it's never going to happen officially. They don't care.
Well,
4K 77 is brilliant. It's the way I watch it now because it is absolutely amazing.
At best, it's going to come to Disney Plus. That's what's going to happen. You can watch either version on Disney Plus in IMAX.
Renew your 12-month subscription to see Greedo shoot first. Oh no!
So yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd quite like to see. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, didn't you? RoboCop. I'd love to see that in 4K.
Yes,
I'd love to see Aliens
Yes.
in 4K. I think that would be
Thank you,
amazing.
Cameron. The 3As we can go for with Cameron, can't we? Abyss, Aliens, and I know no one's going to agree with me, but Avatar.
I love Avatar.
They could do all three in 4K, but he's got no time because he's making.
Is he still doing those?
He's got about 7 to make, I think.
Well, the first one's out next year, isn't it? Allegedly.
We'll see.
Allegedly.
25 years in the making.
Allegedly.
But yes. And you want Star Trek The Next Generation in 4K. I heard Father Christmas visited and said that's what you want.
I would love to have Next Generation, not the movies, the series.
Yes.
I've got the Blu-rays upstairs, and they polished up wonderfully. The HD versions are fantastic. They're so good, in fact, you can see how badly the sets are made. You know, bits of sellotape and screws and scuff marks and everything. It's fantastic. But in 4K, I think they'd really, really be something else. Particularly from season 3 onwards. Imagine going through that Borg ship.
That would
how awesome!
Yeah, it would be. Some of them would be pretty impressive. Yeah,
Mark, I love that.
What would you like?
For me, I'm a huge fan of Soderbergh Solaris. Controversially, or maybe not controversially, I find it better than Tarkovsky's.
Tarkovsky is much better.
Know,
it's much better. Much.
Yeah. But you know, those woozy visuals, the colors, and you got Cliff Martinez's amazing score. I think
it's tremendous. It's one of the best remakes ever.
And again, no UK Blue release. You have to go to Germany to get it. So come on. So I'd like to see that.
It is a nice media book that they do. I'm not going to hold it up because I've got a beautiful screen. This isn't actually where I'm at. I'm not in a desert right now. So,
and one more from my list. So, and this is more a sort of theme, if you like. So, I put on my list a really shoddy 80s film called Titan Find, or it was called Creature in the States. Now, as everyone's favorite Father Christmas from the States, Vinegar Syndrome, they are releasing Creature. I think it's in 4K. I'm not sure. But at least that's getting a release over in Vinegar Syndrome land over in the States this year. And it just got me thinking, I bought Ticks. It's not sci-fi, but, really, really cruddy 90s horror in 4K in a lovely edition from Vinegar Syndrome. And if they can do that, surely they can revisit some of these great 80s sci-fis. Not the big ones, but the likes of Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh, crikey.
Dark Angel.
They could maybe do some of the middling ones. I mean, like in the chats, someone's recommended what I presume to be the original Westworld, Yul Brynner Westworld.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's you could find a halfway house and release some of those. I could see that coming to somewhere like Kino if they really wanted to, maybe.
For me, I would quite like to see a set like this in 4K.
Oh,
nice.
Yes. Very nice.
Yeah, the original Planet of the Apes, because that is real sci-fi, isn't it? Dystopian, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it ends up being with one of the greatest cliffhangers of all time.
Oh, spoilers.
I didn't say it, did I? I didn't say it.
What? Wakes up on the beach with the Statue of Liberty. Come on.
What? Who said that? I never said that.
He was talking about the Tim Burton one.
Oh no! See, now I don't have that. It's weird. I don't own it. I've got these ones in 4K because these are great.
Nice.
based on the originals there. But that Tim Burton one for me is just crap.
Nobody
I just don't
owns
like it at all.
All the discs are in Wahlberg's garage.
I have it,
apart from one.
I have it.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Look, I don't mind. Let's be honest. It's they completely cocked up this, the big twist ending, which you'd argue is 90% of the film. They got it. I still don't know what on earth it was trying to say. Monkey Abraham Link. I don't understand. But the rest of it was fun. The rest of it was okay. Tim Roth was great.
If I wanted to watch an Apes movie, I would watch all of the 3 recent ones and all of the 9. There's probably 6. Original ones. 5. And then I would watch them again. And then after that, if I was still wanting an Apes movie, I might watch the one with Mark Wahlberg and Tim Roth.
Sexy Helena Bonham Carter.
No. No. It's just there's a lot of better apes.
Yes, of course there are.
I hear what you're saying, but it's not like there are only two apes movies, and if you've watched one so much, you could just watch the other one. Just it's not like Dread.
You make a fine point, Kaz. You make a fine point.
So that's, I think, let's have a look and see if there are any more.
Did we say Dread?
We didn't actually. I just mentioned Dread, but actually we should talk. Yeah, Dread is awesome.
And that's a beautiful 4K. Well, that's not. It's muddy and dirty, but it's beautiful 4K. I love it.
You know what? I like the 4K because that was one of the last films I had when I had my 3D sets. And it was a real test for me whether I would ever get used to not being able to watch things like that in 3D, because the 3D for Dread is just sublime. Brilliant. Yeah, it was tremendous. Yeah, it was. But actually, the 4K it was very nice.
Yeah.
Plus, you had the Atmos, so that helped.
It did have the Atmos, but even without the 3D-edness of it, I think the 4K did a pretty good job on that. I very much enjoyed that.
Yeah, I revisit that film quite a lot. Actually, I really quite like it.
So do I. Except mine's called The Raid.
I said that at the time. I said it at the time, and no one believed me. It's exactly the same plot. It's exactly the same plot.
But I was being facetious.
No, but I love them both. It's just I found it very surprising that no one cried copyright over that. This idea of scaling a tower block and shooting bad guys out level to level, being
a difficult one to trademark. That it's a difficult one.
In the same kind of month or same couple of months, it was very close together. I found it suspicious.
Different parts of the world, though.
Yeah, I know, but both American crews, aren't they? Even though,
we're off topic. Don't mention the raid.
Rein it in.
Don't mention the raid.
Well, you know what? I think we've done sci-fi some element of justice despite Discovery.
Really haven't.
IMAX and that. I think we've touched on some great things. And now we have just enough time to take a look at what's coming soon in November and maybe December as a sneak peek. So let's run the ident for coming soon, please.
If you'd like to support the AVForums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AVForums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AVForums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
Right, so our own Andy Bassett, who regularly Russell grants us a look at the future of all things streaming. He's working diligently on a fully exhaustive list of everything coming out over Christmas, but I've actually had a little sneak peek at his crystal ball. So we're going to run through November, but I'm also going to spoil his Christmas list of Netflix.
Oh, you rotter.
I know.
Rotter.
Still to come in November, we don't have Discovery, in case we haven't mentioned it. We got Jeff Daniels' American Rust, Mads Mikkelsen, Riders of Justice, which is being announced for a remake because Hollywood does. We got Juliette Lewis in Yellow Jackets, which I think has been pushed to December, even though it's already out in the States, and that's about cannibals. Disney, we got Hawkeye, we've got Peter Jackson's Beatles Get Back. Amazon, we got Wheel of Time getting surprisingly good reviews. That's coming today after tomorrow. Third and final season of Hannah, and on Netflix we got Bruised and Cowboy Bebop. But in December, Andy has told me we are having the final season of The Expanse, a scarily short 45-minute episodes where people have beards. Netflix are bringing the Sandra Bullock drama Unforgivable. It's a remake of the Saran Jones 2009 British TV series on, I'm going to say BBC, it's probably ITV. More Lost in Space, more Titans, more Witcher, more Cobra Kai. And also Don't Look Up, kind of comedy, satire thingy. Yeah, exactly, with DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence. End of the world thing, asteroid or big ice chunk coming to the Earth to destroy everything. No one is really taking them seriously, and they're trying to warn everybody, and everyone's.
It's Willis when you need him.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's so. We'll see whether that was worth waiting like a year and a half for. Because I remember watching that trailer ages ago and thinking, I'm not sure why.
I'll go watch Armageddon again instead.
Oh,
So,
God, no.
Simon, anything from that huge list of coming soon that tickles your fancy?
What was the December stuff you said? There was something in
Lost
there.
in Space, Titans,
Titans.
Witcher,
Yeah.
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Yes, I enjoy Cobra Kai. As ridiculous as that sounds, I do actually quite enjoy that show. And I think I've actually got it set on my Netflix as a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
I found this feature on Netflix that if you go to next and coming soon, you can click on a button and it will tell you it's coming up and you'll get little flashes. And I thought, oh, that's great. I'll try that. And it works with Cobra Kai. So there we go. It's every day is a learning experience. Strangely, though, it didn't warn me that Discovery was going, which is hard. But anyway, so yeah, Cobra Kai. I'm quite looking forward to that. That's a ridiculously simple show, but fun at the same time. It's going a bit dark and daft at the end towards the end of the third season, but you know, I'll enjoy that.
Are you up to date on Expanse?
No, I still have season 5 to watch at that one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm very much looking forward to Expanse.
Mm,
I don't think they can finish it. I don't know how they can finish it.
Oh,
anyway.
I don't know. Big black hole in the middle of something sucks everything.
Just don't Game of Thrones it. Yes, and Mark.
The Beatles again. That's the one I'm after. Get Back. Really looking forward to that. And one that wasn't on the list actually that I started this week on Disney Plus. Dope Sick. Mm-hmm. This is the dramatization of the world's introduction to OxyContin and the start of America's opioid epidemic. I've watched the first episode so far. We've watched the first 2 episodes so far. It's very good and very interesting. Michael Keaton is in it. Will Poulter is in it. It's a great cast. It does this horrible thing of where it time jumps all over the shop. You'll get a 10-second scene in one year, and then it'll flash back to a minute in another year, and it'll flash forward. And you just think, just calm it down. But it's very interesting. So Dope Sick for me. But of course, I'm not going to watch any TV in December, frankly, with the discs that are coming out. So I'm going to be focused solely on those, Kaz. Do you want to know which ones I'm going to be picking up?
Yes.
Well, I shall tell you. I'm going to go for Tinker Tailor on 4K, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy on 4K, the Mad Max anthology, even with all the controversy around the audio on Mad Max 2, which has come from the other side of the pond this week. No OG 2.0 track, apparently. Citizen Kane on 4K. And
that's the Citizen Kane of movies.
It's the Citizen Kane of black and white Orson Welles dramas.
Paddington 2 of Orson Welles dramas.
But the big one is Arrow's Sure Scope Volume 1. I'm well into my 70s kung fu at the moment with some of these Arrow releases.
You mean physically the big one?
Well, it's yes. Physically, it's going to be about this big. It's going to be bigger than Simon's Super Marionation IMAX box, and it's going to be full of badly dubbed 70s kung fu goodness. So bring it on. So nice. TV, you lot can have TV.
I don't know. There is some good stuff. I mean, I did. Joe Tech from Mars pointed out Book of Boba Fett. I only was privy to Andy's Netflix Christmas list, but I do know Book of Boba Fett is coming just before the new year, I think, to Disney Plus, and I would agree that is something to look forward to. I really liked Mandalorian. I have a lot of time for what they did with Mandalorian versus what they did with the last 3 Star Wars movies. So
do I, but isn't the Book of Boba Fett basically the Star Wars holiday special of the Mandalorian?
Well, let's wait and see. Yes.
We don't know.
I have got time for Book of Boba Fett.
I'll certainly give it a go.
People will die, and
Mandalorian,
and Ming-Na's the co-star, isn't she in it? I've got a lot of time for her.
And which OG character in very poor CG are they going to bring back for that? Who knows?
They must have something up their sleeve, and they finished filming Obi. I think I've got a lot of time for that series, and I'd probably be happier than do that than anything they did in the last prequel, sequel,
yes.
whatever.
sequels, prequels. Yeah.
Anyway, we're done. We're done with sci-fi, but we do have a podcast competition question. And that is, if you want to win Brave New World on Blu-ray, use the following question to select the correct answer. Who wrote Aldous Huxley's Brave New World? Okay, there you go. Please become a patron, as a lot of you already have, for perks like involvement with our hosted content, sweet deals on merch, and exclusive competitions. That's it for AVForums Movies Podcast this week. My thanks to Mark Costello.
But I'm Ed Sheeran, bitch.
And Simon Crust.
Live long and prosper.
Nice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we publish our live streams, product reviews, and more. Or if you're listening at your leisure, leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you're using. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for the latest reviews, news, and videos. Really do bookmark it because there's some good stuff on here. I'm Kaz Harlow. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for our weekly podcasts.